I'm going to be honest with you. I'm growing increasingly cynical about the world that we live in, the societies that we live in today. This video is going to be me venting my feelings about this. And I think it's really important to reflect on this because we are increasingly living in societies that are becoming very individualistic. We're losing that sense of community. We're losing that unity and collectivism that has characterized the human race for generations. I've always firmly believed that deep inside of us, we as humans care far more for each other than for ourselves, that we are a species and a society of unity and connection, of community, not of individual actors trying to maximize their own personal gain. But what our society tells us today, what modern economics tells us, is that we are all rational individuals, that we are individuals that are trying to achieve maximum personal gain. And that is not true. That has never been true. Throughout our history, we've seen that the best times in human history have been times of collectivism. From the prehistoric age and the Stone Age, where communities of hunter-gatherers worked together to build societies and survived themselves by helping each other through trade and bartering, but also through helping each other hunt. We've also seen other aspects of history as well, such as the post-war consensus, where the people at the bedrock of our society were supported. And that led to prosperity for everyone. That's how we should be looking to structure our society, looking to structure it in a way that emphasizes collective progress, because collective progress leads to individual progress. It's not the other way around. When individuals succeed, many others may be left behind. But when a society and a collective and a community succeeds, every person is lifted by the rising tide. When we as governments and as societies are looking to improve the lives of our people, we should not look to create a society where we allow individual success stories, individual entrepreneurs to rise up from the ashes of despair. We should instead look to give equal access to opportunity for everyone. You see these founders and CEOs, you see these Zuckerbergs, Elon Musks, all of these people. You really think that their success is down to their individual brilliance. It's not just down to them. There have been many influences that have led to their success. There have been a team of people that have contributed to them, without which they would not have reached the heights that they've reached today. And that's the inherent problem with capitalism. It recognizes individual success at the expense of collective success. Behind every individual success is collective glory, collective enterprise, collective advancement. And capitalism fails to recognize that. It narrows us down to our individual selves without recognizing that every piece of progress in our history has been brought about by community and collective action. They want us to be disunited. They want us to be divided so that they can increase their own power. That is the truth. If we unite against them, if we unite for ourselves, then they will not have the same power and strength that they do now. And that is the truth. We all know how badly it goes when we're left by ourselves for too long. Even if you're a more reserved, circumspect, introverted person, you know that you need that community and you need that connection. And it's essential to the way that we function as humans. And that reflects in the way that our society should function too. Because without that unity and connection, our societies will never be as successful. And that is human nature. We cannot deny that. If we try to narrow ourselves down to our individual selves, we will always fail to recognize our fullest and truest potential. Just look at the manosphere too, and what happens when you have no community to turn to. Look at what's happening to our young people today. This is a problem that's mainly born from the individualism in our society. Young men increasingly feel that they have no one who supports them, that they have no one behind them that recognizes their frustrations and their feelings and their difficulties. You know what they say, that it takes a village to raise a child. Our village, our collective village, the village of our society and our communities, should be looking to solve the problems that men face. It should be looking to make their lives better in every way possible. But instead, what do we have? We tell them that they have to fend for themselves. We tell them that they have to pull themselves up by the bootstraps and rise up from their difficulties. That is not how we should be functioning as a society. This laissez-faire mentality that we should stand back and allow people to take responsibility for their own progress. To some extent, that is true. To some extent, people should have individual responsibility for how their lives function. But this cannot be sustained for a long time, and it cannot be sustained with certain things. For example, people in poverty. How do you expect them to raise themselves up out of their poverty when the whole system is stacked against them? When they are taxed more than the billionaires and millionaires at the very top of society? When they have little access to opportunity, neither schooling, nor support to start businesses, nor any other form of support that could help them rise up from their position? There are cases where this has happened, of course. There are cases of social mobility success stories, but these stories and these tales of visionary success, these stories are the exception, not the rule. And they are trumpeted and celebrated just for that very reason, to make us think that anything is possible for anyone, when the truth is that is not the reality. These little success stories do not actually reflect what's truly happening across wider society, because way more people are experiencing difficulty and hardship despite all their best efforts. I guarantee you that people at the bottom of our society, many of them are working far, far harder to achieve success and achieve advancement than the billionaires and millionaires at the top of society. But the problem is that they are not rising up, not because of their lack of effort, not because of their lack of competence and skill, is because of the way the society is structured and stacked against them. It is this myth of individualism that is so pernicious, and it leads to this very phenomenon where many people are locked into social despair, whilst others achieve success off the back of this mentality and mindset. When people unite together to try and achieve success, it is far more threatening and far more dangerous. You see this within companies as well, and within scandals too, where individual whistleblowers are silenced and suppressed. A group of whistleblowers, a group of striking workers, these people are far less able to be suppressed, and they have far more power to influence change. We have to have collective action every way, whether that's personal advancement, social advancement, or opposition to the status quo. You can see how individualism has devastated our society. Many people are locked out of opportunity because our society is structured to value this very individualism. We have to change this mindset if we want to see progress for everyone, for the many, not the few. Even though we are so deeply dependent upon community and collective progress, I'm now starting to see a decisive shift in the way that we live our lives. Because even despite all of these benefits of community, all these benefits of collective action and collective progress, we are being conditioned by society to care only for ourselves. That is not a natural phenomenon. That is not how our natural disposition functions. It is the conditioning of society around us. Let me explain how this has happened. We can examine this right from the very root of our society. The education system pushes us towards this when we are young and we are uncorrupted by the mindsets of society. We see that we value others far more. We value community and connection. We want to help everyone around us. We want to help our friends. We want to help our family. We care so much for the people around us. You can see another thing in this natural phenomenon as well. When young children often say, why do we have billionaires in our society when so many people are experiencing poverty? The youngest children, they often say this very thing. They say that it's unfair that we have billionaires whilst other people are starving and hungry. And many people dismiss that as being a preposterous and childish suggestion. But isn't it true? Isn't that a basic moral argument and basic moral question? Why don't we go back to this simple root? And why don't we think of these basic collective mindsets that have been rooted out of us by this society, by this individualism, by this broken education system that suppresses our creativity and our individuality just to push us towards what societies powerful want us to do and be like. Religion also, which is another form of good community and connection, is dismissed as a nuisance by our society. They say it's magic. They say we should be grounding ourselves in reality and fact. But what the truth is that society and community and spirituality and faith, they matter more than anything, especially in a world where truth is becoming increasingly veiled beneath the cover of lies. People have often argued with me about this. The idea about, is there really an objective truth? Can anything really be true? Is a fact really a thing? And what I say to them is that facts are not real. There is no objective truth, because every so-called truth that is given to us It is tainted by the lens that society wishes us to see through. Even the truth about climate change. Of course, we are seeing global warming. Of course, we are seeing changes to our environment. But that's not obviously a complete truth either. We have a natural world that has shown itself to be able to recover from all types of disaster, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroids, all these sorts of things. But we see this framing of climate change too, that it's being framed through this economic lens that we need to increase our GDP through a green industrial revolution. It's also being framed through this idea of preserving what we have now, preserving our society and the ways we live. But what this actually presents an opportunity for us to do, this idea of climate change, this idea of ecological and societal breakdown, is that we can build something and forge something entirely new and entirely different instead of going back to the failures of our past. But these ideas, these different ideas, these radical ideas are not pushed into the mainstream, are true evidence of the fact that there is no objective truth. Let's look at something else too. I believe in the idea of modern monetary theory and the way that it describes how our economy functions. But that's not entirely completely true either. I don't believe that anything is completely true. We have to take everything with a pinch of salt because everything is tainted with bias and it's also tainted with the lens that the powerful want us to see through. Every idea, every belief, every fact that's presented to us, it all has the stamp of power and authority smeared upon it. And we have to recognize that. But that doesn't mean we be entirely cynical. Of course, I'm feeling in a cynical mood, but that does not mean we reject everything entirely. We just have to be mindful to question authority and question power. Let me show you what happens. Caring for other people becomes frowned upon as they tell you to be a man and look out for yourself, that no one will help you in the big bad world. This is what happens with individualism. But no one stops to consider that the more we disguise individualism within the veil of self-reliance and independence, the more normalized as selfishness and individualism become. We have structurally embedded individualism in our societies through a broken education system, as I mentioned earlier, and a broken political system, both of which pour scorn upon collaboration and instead drive us all towards cutthroat competition. We are pitted against ourselves, this financialization and this mentality that says that everyone we see in our society is our competition. But to be fair, it's somewhat true, isn't it? Everyone that we come across is competing against us for an increasingly limited pool of resources, because resources are being sucked away by those at the very top of society, and things are becoming increasingly dangerous and increasingly competitive because we are all desperate to survive in a world that is becoming increasingly difficult to survive in. Instead of pitting ourselves against each other, just as the people at the top, just as the powerful want us to do, we should look and understand how we can unite together to change the society that is pushing us towards this difficulty. The reason why we are experiencing such difficulty, that there are no jobs, that we are all pitted against each other for a narrowing pool of resources, that we are experiencing poverty and inequality and difficulty and squalor at levels that we have not seen for generations. It is not because of migration. It's not because our culture is being eroded by foreign invaders. It is not because of people at the bottom of our society who are claiming welfare and themselves trying to survive. It is the people at the top who are responsible for this decline, whether that's politicians who have failed us with their incompetence or the billionaires who have leached away at our society. It is clear, because of the failure of our political elite and decades of neoliberalism, we do sadly live in a dog eats dog world. You can see that me, my friends, and hundreds of others are desperately chasing that part-time job at Tesco or that part-time role at Farm Foods. Everyone is looking for the same things, but there is increasingly not enough to go around. Do you think that AI is entirely responsible for that? Of course it's not. Of course AI is not entirely responsible for the lack of jobs in our economy. Part of it is obviously financialization, where the whole economy has been diverted towards speculative finance, and there's no real industry and no real jobs in our industrial areas, but also in our cities. It's just retail and finance. There's nothing for people to go into. They have passions, they have interests, they have skills, but it's all diverted towards the financial sector. The most talented people in our society continue to be pushed into the city of London. And look at how we are seeing a society that is lacking in innovation and lacking in progress. That is because our brightest minds are being sucked away into the world of corporate finance. And that is leading to the decline of our society. That has to be one of the number one things, because everyone is desperate for money. Everyone's desperate for financial security. And I don't blame them. I don't blame any of these people who go into finance, because it truly is a glorious opportunity to make your way in the world, but it has disastrous consequences for the rest of society. And the more that this continues to happen, the more that our communities will continue to be hollowed out. We need to reindustrialize our country. We need to provide real jobs and industry back to our communities. We need to recalibrate our economy to focus on the real economy and real people's communities and livelihoods. Provide real jobs and industry to allow them to have the security that they deserve. Instead of having a society where we are turned into dogs rapidly pursuing a dwindling slab of aged meat, we have to have radical change to make sure that everyone has enough, even if that means that the people at the top of society have a little less. That's why I still believe in libertarianism. And even if there's not a cap on wealth, I still believe in the idea of curtailing extreme wealth and supporting the people at the bedrock of our society. And I will continue to do so for the rest of my life. Meanwhile, whilst we're experiencing all this difficulty, the elites and the ultra wealthy at the top of our society are laughing at us and pouring scorn upon our situation, watching us as we feed on the scraps that they have thrown us. It is a smokescreen, people. A smokescreen. A smokescreen to veil the truth about what is happening. When the master gives his slave some bread after beating him mercilessly, he cries in happiness. And he cries his oath of gratitude to his master, when in reality, he has just been conned into obedience. Look at what they have done. They have stripped us of our dignity. They have stripped us of our community. And most crucially, they have stripped us of economic security and economic power, which has increasingly been concentrated in the hands of a few. We are forced to fight each other like dogs to survive. We don't care anymore because there's nothing left. Nothing. In our broken society, there's nothing left. We are competing for the opportunity to get laden with debt, whether that's at university or with a mortgage or the housing market. Then we're competing for a job to keep ourselves afloat or a business to live the dream that they always tell you that it's a game of effort rather than chance, that you can pull yourself up and rise to the top. This is not a meritocracy where workers and ordinary people are punished instead of the extreme wealth that destroys our society, where the people who have the most ease are paying less and contributing less and are being burdened less than those who experience the greatest difficulty. So yes, I am cynical. And I know that no one cares. I know that all around me, people are competing against me and trying to push me out. I know that everyone is trying to win. I know that if I put my foot off the gas, then I will be pushed out. I know what will happen to me. I know what will happen to everyone. The inevitable consequence will be that we will all be stuck in that doom loop of despair that we have been stuck in for generations and that we cannot seem to escape. Nothing will change unless we make it change. That's why I am taking this responsibility. I will not shirk this responsibility, no matter what the allure may be of financial gain, no matter what the allure may be of personal ambition, because this fight to salvage the society that continues to degrade before our very eyes, the society which continues to not provide us with enough. The fight to save this society and its brilliant people, the people who struggle year after year without any reward. This fight and this struggle has to go on, and I will be always fighting for it, no matter if I am successful or not, because every foundation builds a path towards a better future. And I will fight for it with every fiber of my being. Until the day that I die, I will fight for it. It is not enough to stand by the sidelines and watch while people struggle, whilst wealth continues to grow and concentrate, whilst our society continues to decay both morally and economically, where opportunity continues to slip from our grasp. It is not enough to stand by. It is not enough to stand aside. I invite you also to join me in this fight, because the more unity that we have and the more people that we have fighting the status quo, the more likely it is that we finally destroy it. It is a fight that we must continue. Moving forward, I will look for care and community, whether that's in my personal life or in the political realm too. I will look for the people who actually care, who actually understand how despairing it is to live in a society where no one cares. And that's the truth. No one really cares, no matter how close they may be to you. They primarily looking out for themselves, and that's how we have constructed our society to be. I will always strive to make sure that that is not the case for me. I will look out for society's better interests. I will look out for my community's better interests, my family, my friends, everyone, because that is what truly matters. Contribution and legacy. That is the essence of my place in this world, and that's what I want to leave behind. Legacy and contribution. Without that, what will my life have been for? What will I have done? I want to leave a legacy, and I think I already have left enough of a legacy. It's not enough for me, but I have contributed to my community. I have, and I want to continue doing that until I can no longer do so. But how can you join me in the fight? There are 3 ways you can do this. The first is to always question authority and power. Look past the lens that power displays, as I always say, because the truth always lies far behind that. The second, change the narrative. Those who tell the stories rule society, as Plato said. That's why you have to change the narrative. You might not be able to on a large national level, but you can always change the narrative in your community by trying to give them an alternative perspective and telling them the truth, telling them what you believe is the reality, telling them why individualism and personal ambition and gain is not the only answer to the future of our society's problems. And finally, the last thing you have to do is to fight. Because if we fight, not if I fight, not if Andy Burnham fights, not if Zoran Mamdani fights, but if we fight, we are guaranteed to win. Just like our predecessors have, whether that's in the cooperative movement, whether that's in the trade union movement, whether that is in the miners' strikes against cruel and oppressive conditions. The workers can only change society. Ordinary people can only change society if they unite against power. I think that now is the time, more than ever, to unite, to hold them accountable, and to bring the change that we need and we deserve. This has been Mission Undercover, and I hope to see you all next time.